Hey, it's Professor Gould, and in this set of lectures, we're going to talk about how cells use energy and what they use for energy. So we're going to start off really basic with what do we mean by energy. Energy is the capacity to cause change. So if you are moving something against a force or causing a chemical reaction to happen, or, lifting up your textbook to study, all of those things require energy, and energy is the capacity for making those things happen. Now, first law of thermodynamics, very important. Energy is not created or destroyed. Energy is transformed from one kind to another, from one form to another. But the total energy in the universe is constant. We also call this the principle of conservation of energy. So it's really important when we're talking about this that we don't say that we are making energy. We say that we are releasing energy or storing energy or transforming energy, but we're not creating it or destroying it. All right, two kinds of energy that are super important for biological systems. Potential energy is energy that is stored up. So in biological systems, most often this is energy within chemical bonds, within a molecule. It could also be the chemical driving force in a concentration gradient. So remember, we learned about concentration gradients when we learned about the cells. So we're also going to see some times when cells use that concentration gradient as a form of energy. That is, the gradient itself is the potential energy. A compressed spring is another example of a potential energy. Kinetic energy, on the other hand, is the energy of things in motion. So a rock falling off a cliff has energy because it is in motion. That motion is its own form of energy. Molecules in motion have energy. And the movement of particles down a concentration gradient is a form of kinetic energy. So inside cells, we're going to see potential energy be transformed into kinetic energy when things are allowed to move down an established concentration gradient. We'll talk more about that as we go through the semester. Now, one other principle that's important, and actually the second law of thermodynamics, is that all energy conversions generate heat. So some heat is always being lost back into the universe whenever we transform from potential to kinetic or kinetic to potential energy. Now, the chemical energy is what we're going to focus on for this lecture, and that is the energy that is stored between atoms within a molecule. And just to really, really simplify things, the way it's going to help you to think about this is when you make a chemical bond, it requires energy to make that bond. And when you break that bond, it releases energy. Okay, I just need to say, I know your chemistry teachers, this is not exactly true. It's more complicated than this. But in biological systems, this is the end result of what's happening. So I will let your chemistry teachers talk about the actual complexity involved in this, but just as a way of very, very simply thinking about things within biological systems, when we create bonds, we are storing energy. When we break bonds, we are releasing energy. Okay? All right, so one thing to think about is gasoline. Octane is one of the molecules found in gasoline. It's actually 8 carbon atoms with hydrogen atoms around it. The chemical reaction that happens is it gets mixed with oxygen, and it produces kinetic energy in the form of movement. It moves your car. It also produces heat. And the waste products from that reaction, or the products from the reaction, are carbon dioxide and water. The reaction's going on inside your body and inside biological organisms. The most common molecule used for fuel is glucose, the 6-carbon sugar. It's mixed with oxygen in a process called cellular respiration, which we'll talk about later. Heat is produced, which is why all living things produce heat. And this combination and a whole set of reactions that we'll learn about create a molecule called ATP that we're going to talk about a lot more, and produce carbon dioxide and water, which is why carbon dioxide is a waste product for us, and oxygen is required for us to do biological processes. All right, so let's talk for just a minute about how we measure the energy in food, because there's this word choice that's just really not helpful, and that is that a calorie is a measure of the amount of energy in something. It is defined as 1 calorie can raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree centigrade. Okay, so that is the definition of a calorie. Now, notice this is calorie with a lowercase c. Uppercase C calories, the ones that we talk about when we talk about food, are actually kilocalories, meaning that is 1,000 of these calories. Okay, so 1 calorie would raise a kilogram of water by 1 degree C, or 1 gram of water by 1,000 degrees C. Anyway, 5 calories increase, 5 calories, dietary calories, increases the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 5 degrees centigrade. Okay, so that's just something to remember. Just keep that in mind. The calorie in physics class or chemistry class and the calorie in food is different. So here's some examples of calories in food, and some calories that you burn by exercising. And I know you've been told your whole life that if you just balance the amount of food you take in with the amount of activity you do, that you won't store excess energy in the form of fat. And that's kind of true, but not completely. Our bodies are really complicated and super complex. So we're going to talk more about that, although this is not a human physiology class. And we just know that it's not that simple. And if you feel like, oh my God, I've been not eating as much and haven't been losing weight. Yeah, that's because bodies are complicated. Okay, so that's all we need to know about energy. Now, next we're going to talk about that molecule ATP.